Okay, so for the examples in 4.3, we're just going to be doing some completing the square to solve some quadratic equations, okay? So write and solve a quadratic equation by taking the square root. A widescreen television has a diagonal measure of 42 inches. The width of the screen is 16 inches more than the height. Determine the dimensions of the screen to the nearest tenth of an inch. Okay, so we're going to be looking for the height and the width. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a little diagram here so I know what I'm looking at. Okay, there's my TV. It's 42 inches on the diagonal. We know that the width of the screen is 16 inches more than the height. We don't know what either one is, but because it's being compared to the height, that's what I'm going to set my x at. Okay, so if I let x equal the height, then what would be the width is 16 inches more than the height, so I'm going to make that x plus 16. Okay. Now in the past we've done some of these and we've multiplied them together to get the area. In this case we don't have the area, but what we have is the diagonal. Okay, so my TV has a right angle in the corner. So perhaps you can see that we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out what x is. All right, so c squared equals a squared plus b squared. That is the Pythagorean theorem. And what, if you remember, it doesn't matter which one's a and which one's b as long as c is the hypotenuse of the right triangle. So 42 inches is going to be our c, so 42 squared equals x squared. We'll make our height a, and we'll make our width b. Okay, so 42 squared is equal to 1764. Okay, that's equal to x squared plus, and don't forget you're squaring a binomial here, so you're going to end up with three terms, x squared plus 16x plus 16x plus 256. Okay, and remember when we completed the square before, we often had, when we did it before when it was f of x and we still had that, we always had everything over on one side. But then when we started doing it as an equation, that's when we left the constant term on one side and the x squared and the x term on the other. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to start by subtracting 256 from both sides. And that's going to leave me with 1,508. Okay. And here we've got 2x squared plus 32x. Okay. Now, when you have a common factor on both sides, you can just divide by that, as long as it's not x. If it's x, you have to leave it there, but if it's a number like 2, then you can just divide everything by 2, and that's not going to affect your equation. Okay, so 754 equals x squared plus 16x. Okay, and so like I said, when we complete the square with an equation rather than a function, we're going to have the constant on the other side. Okay, so to complete this square, I'm going to take half of 16, that's 8, and square it. Okay, and I have to add 64 to this side as well to keep the equation. Okay, and that's going to give me 818. Okay, I can rewrite this. This is my binomial squared now. It's x plus 8 squared. Okay, and so we're going to be able to take the square root of both sides here now. Okay, and remember, on this side, we want to use the plus or minus. You don't have to do the plus or minus on one side, right? Okay, so always do it on the side with the number in. Okay, so x plus 8 equals plus or minus root 818. Okay, I'm not sure if 818 can be simplified at all. I don't think that it can. But we're looking for a measurement to the nearest tenth of an inch, so that's okay. We're not looking for an exact answer anyway. Otherwise, if we were, I would be making it a priority to simplify my radical. Okay, so I end up with, when I subtract 8 from both sides, I end up with negative 8. Okay, subtract 8, or add a negative 8. And I like to put my my rational number before my root here. Okay, that's just why I added the negative 8 on the left instead. Okay, so x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus root 818. So I'm going to use my calculator. I'm going to find out what the square root of 18 is. It's 28.6. Okay, so that means I'm going to have to the nearest tenth of an inch, I'm going to have -8 plus 28.6 and -8 minus 28.6. Okay, so this is going to give me -36.6. Okay, and this is going to give me 20.6. Okay, and so when we're looking for a dimension of our TV screen, we could ask ourselves, does a negative root actually make sense here? Okay, and you will probably find that it doesn't. Okay, and really we're not going to have a negative height of our TV screen. Okay, so our dimensions are x by x plus 16. Okay, so we're going to reject this root. That's called extraneous root. Okay, so we have a height of 20.6 inches, and we have a width of 20.6 plus 16, okay, or 36.6 inches. Okay, so if we wanted to write it in a sentence, the dimensions of the 42-inch television screen are approximately 20.6 by 36.6 inches. And you can check it by putting those back into the Pythagorean theorem, okay, and making sure that that they equal approximately 42. And we did round slightly, okay, but make sure that they equal approximately 42 squared, okay, and you should find that they do.